Hi friends, I'm Carmen and I'm one of the educators at Curiodyssey. Today, I want to talk to you if you're serious about getting outside to start watching wildlife. If that sounds like something you want to do, then stay tuned because I want to talk to you all about nature notebooking. So what is nature notebooking? Well, it's all about learning how to look closer, listen closer, and notice everything that's around you. Just like it sounds, nature notebooking is all about putting your observations right here in a notebook. Nowadays, we have a lot of options for how we can record information about nature, including things like tablets and even your phone. Those can report back to community science organizations like iNaturalist. As a person who's a little bit old-fashioned and who loves to revisit memories, there's no substitute for writing it down on paper because you can flip through your observations and relive those awesome nature discoveries anytime you want. One of my favorite things to do when I was in school learning about nature was to write down funny and silly things that happened along with all of the serious science that we're doing. So if you're the type of person who likes to remember every single thing and be able to paint the picture of the day-by-day, play-by-play at any moment, I highly recommend starting to Nature Notebook. For example, you can have stories about funny things that your friends said while you were out exploring nature, pictures, sketches, you name it. All of those observations can go in your notebook. When I say there's a lot of flexibility in nature notebooking, here's a little bit of what I mean. For example, when I'm on a research project and people are depending on me for my data, I make sure that absolutely everything is listed, drawn, and measured out. That's not always the case, though. Sometimes I'm nature notebooking while I'm learning. And what I record really just shows the process of how I've progressed. For example, here, when I was learning a little bit more about nature sketches, and I have little notes and instructions along with my drawings. If you're not so much a fan of drawing or even writing whole sentences, then the fun nature notebook is the one for you. This is my journal that I use after I've been outside and record some of the funny stories and clip out pictures from a calendar or magazines that match with the bird. Sometimes I add in scientific notes like what I thought the bird sounded like, and other times I just put in silly drawings that help me remember exactly what was happening at the moment in which I saw that animal. So there's lots of different ways to notebook about nature, some silly, some serious, but all of them are great memories to have as you go along in your nature explorations. If you're looking for just the basics of what to write down on a nature notebook page, here's just some recommendations. It'll be important for you to remember when your observations took place. So a date or a time, as specific as you can get it, would be awesome. The place. Maybe you want to be really specific and you have something like GPS coordinates, or maybe you're just exploring in your own backyard. Either way, be as specific or as general as you need. Most importantly, you're going to include what you notice around you. These are your observations. Remember to use your 5 senses. However, usually in nature science, we only recommend using 4. Can you guess which one isn't usually very safe to use? Think twice before you use your sense of taste while nature notebooking. Only do that if you have a trained professional with you to tell you what's safe. Otherwise, your other senses will do great for you. Other notes, especially while you're studying wildlife, touching, smelling, those are 2 things that often require you to be way up close and should probably only be done with a trained education animal like the ambassadors we have at Curiodyssey. With the wild animals, you're mainly going to be hearing and seeing. But you never know, maybe you're nature notebooking about plants, and these two do apply. Either way, be careful out there when you record what you notice. Alright friends, here's a little reality check. When was the last time you found yourself out in nature and had a notebook all ready to go? I thought you would because you're a pro. But just in case, here's a little hack I like to use in a pinch when you don't have a notebook in hand and you need to make something pocket-sized out of just a sheet of paper with some scissors. Check it out. Start with the paper laying flat on the countertop that you have. Fold it in half the long way or the hot dog way, whichever you like to call it. Open it back up so that it's flat, and then just fold it the other way, the hamburger way. Okay, so this paper has a few more creases on it because I recycled a paper bag, but if you're using a fresh piece of paper, you should just have those 2 creases so far, one the long way and one the short way. So go ahead and leave it folded the short way. Lift and fold back just one layer. So you have a little sandwich here. Take just this top one and fold it back like this. Then go ahead, flip it over, and do the same thing on the other side. Fold up one piece of that sandwich. You know you did it right if you hold your paper like this, and you roughly see the letter W there in your creases. So there's our letter W. Alright, here's the part where we're going to start cutting to make the booklet. Find that crease that you put in from the long way fold. So it's right about here in the middle. What you're going to want to do is start cutting all the way down to these little flaps. If it helps you to draw a line right along here to remind yourself not to keep going, go ahead and do that. Right now, since I have the instructions right in front of me, I won't forget. So I'm just going to snip right down. Alright, so here is my cut right there in the middle of my W. You want to completely split apart these cut pages and then fold the whole thing in half, just like this. It'll look kind of like a fan, and then you just flatten it out, and you can decide how to fold it over, and there's your 1, 2, 3, 4 page little field notebook. Pretty handy, huh? By the way, here's the template I was using for this little origami pamphlet, which I'm going to use as a little field notebook. You can go ahead onto this website, bookzoompa.wordpress.com, to follow these instructions, or simply go ahead and use the tutorial that I showed you hands-on. Alright, so now that you're all set with the basics of nature notebooking, it's time to try it for real. Head outside and let's do some science. Here's a little activity that would be a great place to start nature notebooking. Just a warning, it's a little intense. So here I am coming to you from inside my tent. I love camping, and when you can't go anywhere for the weekend, it's the perfect time to practice with your camping gear and just set it up at home. So that's what I did for fun. I got it nice and cozy and ready to hang out inside. The nature notebooking activity that I'm going to try this afternoon is called sound mapping. It's when you use your sense of hearing to notice the sounds around you. And it might seem kind of weird that I started to do an activity about nature notebooking and studying wildlife when I'm inside a tent and I can't see anything around me. Well, being inside of a tent is a really great way to pay more attention to what you're hearing without being distracted by what you see. It allows you to focus on all the things around you and can help you from getting distracted by the smaller details, and maybe even help you become alert to some details that you wouldn't notice if you were only looking at the things that you could both see and hear at the same time. So I love doing sound maps inside of a tent or a bird blind or some other hidden place because it really challenges you to be in touch with the sounds, the variety, and even the intensity, because sometimes you can feel the sounds vibrating through the ground. So that's why I'm here inside my tent, and I think I'm going to just hunker down and do a little bit of listening. Here's a little look at the sound map that I came up with from this little nature sit here in my tent. Sometimes I like to write down what the sound was like. Sometimes I like to draw what I think it would look like, and sometimes I even just try to guess where it came from, or I just draw whatever shape comes to mind. So it's a fun way to just be creative and look at sounds and think about them in a whole new way. So from my sound map, you can see that I'm obviously here in an urban habitat right here on my porch, overlooking all kinds of things like neighborhood. There's birds above, there's neighbors below, neighbors to the side, lots of things around, intermixed with, of course, the mostly birds were the wildlife that I ended up noticing in my sound map. So this was an example of a sound map that was a little bit more like a nature meditation, where you're just hanging out for fun. But sound mapping like this, these skills are something that I use in real life as a bird biologist when I'm doing community science with the Golden Gate Raptor Observatory. Oftentimes when we're outside in the field in a bird blind, it's a place where you can kind of hide away from the birds where they can't see you. When you're inside of that place, you really rely upon your ears. Oftentimes, you're only able to look one direction, and you have teammates that you need to communicate with, or there are birds moving and you need to react or look. So being able to use the skills that you develop by sound mapping and noticing all the things around you constantly can really help you to become a better scientist. I know it definitely helps me to become a more acute and aware scientist whenever I'm out in the field. So whether you want to grow up to be a biologist like me, or to study some other part of science, I hope that you enjoy honing your observation skills. Get out there, do some science outdoors, and please try this at home along with a bunch of our other activities on our At Home Science Curiodyssey page. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.